Hi everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Before we get started, I just have a few short messages. First off, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe this podcast. It's the best way to help us grow and help me get on bigger and better guests. Also, don't forget you can pre-order my book, To the Moon, The GameStop Saga, right now by following the links in the description below. We've also got a few quick sponsors for the show today. Cryptocurrencies are all the rage these days. Over 100 million people now own cryptocurrency. Some for the memes, some for the long-term value, and some for the underlying technology. But there hasn't been a coin or token that has emerged yet that truly replaces cash or currency. This is where Dash comes in. Dash is digital cash, a user-focused cryptocurrency which you can spend anywhere, anytime, and any amount for fees less than 1 cent. With hashtag DashDirect, people can spend their Dash at over 155,000 major US retailers and get a discount and money back into their Dash wallet. No banks, no fiat, just pure crypto with an average saving of 5%. Anyone can participate in the network, and Dash is widely available for purchase around the world. The ingenious Masternode network means sending any sum of money around the world is as simple as tapping your phone at your local grocery store. So you can say goodbye to slow transactions, complex international account numbers, and high transaction fees. Dash gives you the freedom to move your money any way you want. Grab a coffee, split a check, or pay your phone bill. Dash moves money anywhere to anyone instantly for less than a cent. One of the most overlooked aspects of running a podcast is who you host with. You might think it doesn't matter, as I did for quite a while, but it's really crucial to pick a host that is not only going to be reliable, but one that is going to help your show grow and evolve. That's why today's sponsor is Disctopia, what they call Podcasters Paradise. Whether you're starting a new podcast or need to migrate one over from another host, you have found the best podcast hosting solution. Period. With more features and flexibility than any other platform, from unlimited storage and uploads to multiple networks, Disctopia has it all. With Disctopia, you'll get a podcast profile page, the ability to manage multiple episodes, and an embeddable episode web player, all on a secure site. You can even have private or exclusive episodes which you'll get paid for, and your podcast will be distributed everywhere via RSS feeds. Your listeners will get unlimited downloads, you'll get access to unique listener reports, and their analytics are second to none. And on top of all of that, you get 24/7 world-class customer support. Disctopia will give you creative freedom for all your podcasts with integrated merch as well. That's right, just upload it all in one place, and you can set your content to be downloadable or even stream only. Disctopia gives podcasters more power, so what are you waiting for? Start today by using our code CHATTER, that's CHATTER, to get your first 3 months free on us. That's a special code for listeners of this podcast, and 3 months of free hosting by using the code CHATTER. Check out Disctopia today. Links for everything will be in the description below, so check them out, and then please enjoy the podcast. Okay, I believe we are live. Hello everyone who is listening. Hopefully this is working. Yeah, I believe it is. So hello everyone who's listening. Thanks for tuning in. Today I have the absolute pleasure to be joined by Peter McCormack, the Prince of Bedford, as I've seen you called. And
that's my son.
So what, you're the King of Bedford then? Is that what you're saying?
That's why I started. Yeah, it was just some stupid thing I said ages ago because Bedford's so small and nothing. I said, yeah, I'm the King of Bedford, just as a joke. And then my son came on Twitter and he named himself the Prince of Bedford and started trolling Peter Schiff, which was kind of funny.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, anyone who wants to give Peter Schiff a bit of a troll is all right in my mind. That guy is, yeah, he gets triggered very easily.
Well, you know what? He had a chance to buy Bitcoin very, very cheap. and would have been fabulously wealthier than he is. And he's already a wealthy guy, but he had a chance very, very early on. He dismissed it. He's continued to dismiss it over and over again, but now it's becoming almost embarrassing. Somebody asked me to set up another debate with him, and I just replied back, like, what's the point? He's not somebody who enters into a discussion and says, I want to listen to your opinions because my mind could be changed. His mind can't be changed. He's so entrenched in his views that it becomes a pointless discussion. But it's kind of embarrassing now because look at where Bitcoin has come, especially in this last year. Now it's a reserve asset for Tesla. It is a legal tender in El Salvador, and millions of transactions are happening every single day. Billions of values being transferred around the world, and he continues to dismiss it. So it just becomes pointless. Why debate him?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Like when people ask you to debate them, it's very, very rare that they think that they're going to be proved wrong. But so one of the things I've been looking at, I guess, to start us off here is this court case that's been going on with Craig Wright, and I've been talking to Kurt Jr. about sort of Bitcoin, BSV, and Bitcoin Cash, and I was curious as to whether you think that BTC is Bitcoin, because they sort of debate that it's actually Bitcoin. And does it even matter? Is it not just the one that's the most successful ultimately? Like, are you a real purist in thinking that it has to be like Bitcoin as such?
Well, I'm involved in my own lawsuit with Craig Wright at the moment in the High Court of the UK. So there's some limitations on what I can and can't say, because that's a libel lawsuit, because I challenged his claims that he is Satoshi. So I have to be careful what I do and don't say. Kurt Jr. is not somebody I would hold with any high credibility as somebody to discuss and debate this with. Really, the debate on what is Bitcoin is it's already been answered. Bitcoin BTC is Bitcoin. Everything else, which is a fork, is a copy of Bitcoin, an attempt to change some of the parameters because they believe by changing those parameters, they create a better cryptocurrency, a better form of Bitcoin. Every single instance, whether it's BSV, BCH, Bitcoin Platinum, Bitcoin Gold, all these forks and these attempts to create other versions of Bitcoin have all failed. And the way you can measure the failure is let the market decide. How does the market price these assets? Because you have to consider these assets are primarily a store of value, but ultimately also a medium of exchange. But if you consider them based on what the market values are them, if you look at BCH and BSV compared priced in Bitcoin, they've both lost probably over 90% of their value from their highs. So the market is priced that these cryptocurrencies are not worth holding as value at the Bitcoin. These debates are almost a waste of time now. They're very small communities of people who have believed in a certain ideology regarding their cryptocurrency, and that's something they need to get behind. Most of them is based on the design of how a cryptocurrency should scale, such as Bitcoin. There's a big issue that has plagued Bitcoin over the years, the discussion on how do you scale Bitcoin. Now, the ultimate goal of Bitcoin is to be decentralized. It is to subvert the state, to have a form of money that cannot be controlled by a small group of people, because this is one of the problems Bitcoin is solving, is the problems of fiat currencies and how governments can, at their whim, print money and centrally plan the economy. So Bitcoin is this idea that it's this decentralized form of money that nobody has control over. To be decentralized, it has to have as many people running nodes as possible. To have people running nodes, the blocks in the blockchain, they have to be as small a size as possible. So the big debate that happened back in 2017, which is known as the Fork Wars, was this idea that, should you scale on-chain or off-chain? And what that means is, should you scale the number of transactions that Bitcoin can handle, but in the size of the blocks in the base chain, or should you scale it in levels above it? So if at the moment the Bitcoin blockchain is essentially 1 megabyte, due to some changes that are made with SegWit a few years ago, something known as a block weight means actually it can carry a higher density of transactions. But at the same time, if people continue to use Bitcoin, the base chain does have a limit to the number of transactions it can hold. So one option is to increase the size of the block. So you can go from 1 megabyte, say, to 2 megabytes, to 4 megabytes. The problem with that is there's the total size of the blockchain. If you run a node on your computer, it means you have an entire copy of the blockchain, so you can verify every transaction. In doing that, if you increase the size of the blockchain, you change the ability for you change who can and cannot run a node. So the total blockchain, just say for the sake of this conversation, is 500 gigabytes. I can download it on my laptop here and run a node. I can also go and buy a Raspberry Pi and a hard disk, a terabyte hard disk, and I can run that. Now, if you look at something like Ethereum, which is something that doesn't care about the size of its blockchain, which is at the moment multiple terabytes, it's very difficult for an individual to run a node. So the idea of decentralization is keeping the blockchain as small as possible. The smaller the blockchain, the easier it is for people to run nodes. Things like BSV and BCH wanted to scale and have scaled on chain. Something like Bitcoin has made the decision to scale in higher layers. So we have something called the Lightning Network, which allows you to process infinitely more transactions than the base chain on a higher level, yet protect the integrity of the blockchain. So to me, that debate's it's almost a pointless debate now. I wouldn't even bother wasting time talking to someone like Kurt. He's been proven to be repeatedly wrong in his ideas regarding what Bitcoin is and what Bitcoin should be. The market has completely priced Bitcoin SV as something that was close to worthless. It's a top 10 cryptocurrency in CoinMarketCap to something like 67 now, and it continues to fall. So ultimately, it's a dead project. What should we call it? A dead project processing blocks rather than a dead man walking.
Okay. No, that's a really great explanation of why you want to keep the nodes small. That's I hadn't had someone lay it out quite so succinctly to me. So thanks. That's really great, actually. It gives me a much better understanding of this. So one of the things that you mentioned during one of the interviews I was listening to you earlier and yesterday was that you're just a Bitcoin hodler. And I really started to think about this idea of like being a hodler as such, and like A, where it came from, and B, if it's just like because I've been writing this book about the GameStop saga, which is just incredible. I'm not sure how much attention you've paid to it. It's been yeah, it's been a ride. Anyway, but obviously these are the one of the memes that's been very widely shared in that community is like, okay, so we're just gonna hodl, we're gonna hodl until the financial world breaks, basically. And I was wondering if you think this is like like some sort of weird new phenomenon where people will just like cling to the thing they think has value for dear life, or is this just like an internet like mimetic expression of just long-term value investing, and we think we've invented this new thing as a generation?
There's multiple aspects to hodling. The term actually came, I've got it here for you. It came about in 2013. It was a typo. This guy who was drunk, and he was on a Bitcoin forum, and the price of Bitcoin had dropped 39%, and he just declared, "I am hodling." So it was a typo that became a meme. But the thing about memes are now currency. Memes are marketing. In the world of social media, a very short meme can do way more than a blog post. I mean, I put a meme out the other day. It was Hillary Clinton talking about cryptocurrencies destabilizing the dollar, and I just replaced cryptocurrency with the word fiat. It's my best performing tweet in months. It's like thousands of likes. So memes are currency, but they're actually very effective, very important, and they tell a very quick, snappy story in a world of 6-second Snapchats and 280 character tweets. But the idea behind hodling, actually, there's a lot to it, and you can look at it at multiple dimensions. We are trying to bootstrap a new financial network into the world. We're trying to demonetize fiat currencies and bring to life this new form of money, which has this fixed limit with this very strict monetary policy. So one of the things that is if you're hodling and you're holding, you're here for the long term. You're here to support the network. You're here to say, I don't care what happens to the price. I'm going to hodl for year after year. But there's another point to hodling is that it's this avoidance of emotions. It's very easy when you first start buying Bitcoin because it's super volatile to get caught into the emotions. It goes up $2,000 and drops $5,000 and goes up $3,000. Like it jumps all over the place. when you're first involved, I've seen it myself and I've seen other people do it. They get very emotional with it and suddenly react and panic and sell. So the idea of hodling is just forgetting about the volatility. It's continuing to stack your sats, continue to increase the size of your Bitcoin position, and hodling through these volatile times. So yeah, the hodl terms serves multiple purposes, but really it is just a meme, and memes are currency.
Yeah, I mean, to what extent do you think like memes are literally in charge of the world? Because I've actually been trying to think about this of late. And I wrote an article and did like a video about 6 months ago where I was like, look, if you just figure out what is the most memeable future, that is what's going to happen at this point. Like, we're so far down the line in terms of just like stupid things coming true. Like, I don't think half the events of the last 10 years happened without memes, which sounds like ridiculous as like a historical driving force. But like, do you think that there's any merit to that idea, or am I just like seeing crazy things?
Oh, I don't know, man. I mean, look, I think memes can both be used to predict the future and both tell the story of history. It just depends what the meme is and who created it at what point. But memes are an integral idea. I mean, just look, the previous leader of the free world, Mr. Donald Trump, was an absolute genius at memeing into the world. Memeing to me is just storytelling. It's what it is. And we since the dawn of time, since humans could first pick up rocks and carve things into caves, we've told stories, and we've told stories in long form. We've told them in short form. You and I do podcasts which are long form storytelling. It's trying to extract a story for someone to listen to and understand. Memes are just a form of storytelling. That's all it is. Very snappy ways of telling stories. But they're not in isolation. They almost can become like a series. Like they're almost something that promotes a specific way of thinking about a particular subject. So, for example, hodl is a meme, but itself can have multiple versions of the hodl, multiple versions of the graphics. You can see all different types of ways that meme has been expressed over time. But really, I just see memes as storytelling, their marketing, their communication. There are just they sit alongside every other form of communication. If you want to tell a story out there, you can write a blog post, you can made a film, you can create a meme. Memes are though usually very reactionary to like a certain event. So yeah, I don't know, man. I just think they're another tool of storytelling.
So this idea that Bitcoin might like facilitate some sort of financial revolution is obviously this one that's talked about quite a lot by Bitcoin maximalists. And as with a lot of these ideas, like when you talk about it in theory, I'm all in. I'm like, okay, this sounds like a fantastic way to escape the very, very the very, very corrupt financial system that currently sort of runs the world, essentially. And I believe that we need to like get out of that. I understand how Bitcoin could potentially be used as an alternate form of like global currency, if not by itself amongst other cryptos and other sort of CBDCs and like as a whole a plethora of potential things in the future. Where do you see that crossover? Because obviously this has to go from being something that's looked at by like that libertarian, tech utopian, internet cultural sort of center, and it has to move to being used by everybody. How do you think we get there without government saying, well, screw you, basically?
See, that's an interesting thing because Bitcoin doesn't need everyone to be using it. It just doesn't. The great thing about Bitcoin is that you or I, at any point, can choose to operate a Bitcoin standard. We can choose to live on a Bitcoin standard. I pretty much do now. So let's explain what that means. Because in the current world, if you hold pounds or euros or dollars, hold them in your bank account, you will be lucky if you're even getting 0.5% interest. But we know inflation in various parts of the world. The US is 6.2%. I think it's 4% in the UK. It's 20% in Turkey. You really have to spend that money because if you don't, you're losing purchasing power. Your your money is essentially losing value due to government policy. So the idea with Bitcoin is that you change your time preference. You delay your gratification. You say, do I want to buy what I want to buy today, or can I wait? And the reason it's created that is this 4-year cycle that Bitcoin seems to go on. Every 4 years, it sees this big acceleration in price. There's volatile times in between, but it tends to do this like 5 to 10x every 4 years. So if I wanted to buy a car right now, the consideration is, okay, the car costs £40,000. Well, do I really need that car? Because in 4 years' time, that might be $400,000. That might buy me a house. So you start to change your time preference. So once you put yourself on a Bitcoin standard, you start to make those considerations. You don't need anyone else to be on it. You're just on it yourself. So it doesn't need everyone to come around to it. It just needs, what does it need? I mean, I guess its need depends on what your goal is. I mean, there has to be enough liquidity in the market, enough people who care about Bitcoin to buy and sell it on a daily basis, that if you do want to sell some, to buy something, but that liquidity exists. It's existed for years now. Now, I think the question really asking is that if the goal is to have a better form of money globally, how do we actually get there? Where do we reach the tipping point? What that tipping point is, I don't know how you measure that, because it's not like one day we're going to wake up and every country is suddenly going to be on a Bitcoin standard and using Bitcoin. I think it's just going to be this transitionary period where there's just going to be different events where somebody, if you look going 50 years time and somebody writes the history of Bitcoin, in 50 years time, say the majority of the world owns Bitcoin, is using Bitcoin, the majority of settlement globally is on Bitcoin. When they write the history, point to key times and things that happened. We had the fork wars, which you talked about earlier, where we learned about what Bitcoin really is. You'll talk about the September the 7th, 2021, when Bitcoin became legal tender in El Salvador, and what that meant, being the first country. And we'll probably have a chapter on what the countries were that came after that. And then we'll have a chapter about a country which didn't just didn't just make Bitcoin legal tender, made it the only currency of the country. So it's really difficult to point to a specific time or a specific event to say this is what needs to happen, because there is none. Bitcoin is just like this organic beast that continues to just like eat stuff up. It kind of eats up parts of the financial sector. It brings people into it who understand it, and it's just continued to grow. I mean, it's now a $1.2 trillion asset. I mean, that might have changed because the price is always changing, but it's definitely over $1 trillion asset now, which is huge. I mean, some people will remember the time where it was 100 million. Some people remember the time where it was a million. In 5 years' time, we might be talking, it might be a $10 trillion asset. It might be bigger than gold. So I don't think there's a specific time or event. I just think there are a series of events where this thing continues to take over.
That's interesting. Now, one of the things you'd been speaking about on that, I think it was that Alex Gladstein, Eric Voorhees episode that I was listening to, was the idea that proof of stake, in a way, was vaguely following the problems of the current fiat financial system, in that they were it's based on a whole bunch of debt, basically, right? And it's
what's a Cantillon effect?
Okay, so
the Cantillon effect being that those closest money print are the ones that benefit from it. So as the government increases the money supply, those closest to the creation of the money are the ones that tend to benefit from it most. And we've seen that through the lockdowns over the last 18 months, as governments have continued to print cash to prop the economy up. We've minted lots and lots of new billionaires, and the billionaires we're aware of now are supremely richer, and the middle class has been squeezed, and the working class has been squeezed. So that's the Cantillon effect. And the thing about Bitcoin is that it operates on a system of proof of work. So the proof of work consensus mechanism says that anyone can set up a miner and start mining Bitcoin, and they have to expend energy to mine that Bitcoin. And those who can source their energy at the cheapest and mine the most efficient are the most profitable. But anyone can go out and do that, which gives Bitcoin this thing, which is Nick Szabo talked about, which is unforgeable costliness. There is a costliness to create that money. Now, Ethereum wants to move to something called proof of stake, which rather than miners mining the Bitcoin and expending energy, you stake your coins. So your coins, you stake them, and you get a reward for that. the problem with that is Ethereum firstly had something that's known as a pre-mine, where the creators of Ethereum were granted a whole bunch of the supply, and they are supremely rich now. Now they get to stake those coins and continue to benefit from that. So it continues to it continues. How do I put this? Well, look, the Cantillon effect widens the wealth gap, and proof of stake will do the same.
Okay, so the thing that then I was thinking about after that was this. There's an effect that, or an effect in nature and in finance that Jordan Peterson actually talks about a lot. It's called the Pareto distribution. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
80-20?
Essentially, yeah. It's he says that, well, he argues that it's even more extreme, but it's essentially this 80-20 rule, that 80% of the gains will go to 20% of the people. And I've seen some people arguing that this is kind of happening in the Bitcoin world, where the idea is that the most of everything will concentrate in the hands of a very few group of people, and it's like I don't want to call it a fundamental rule of nature, but it seems to like recreate itself across many different things if left unchecked. Like, for example, our current economic system. Like, people would argue we need to have like controls and taxes and whatnot to stop that happening. Whether you agree with that or not is fair enough, but like, it is happening. Like, when things are left unchecked, especially in the money tends to accumulate in the hands of fewer and fewer people. And that is there a problem that could happen with Bitcoin? Is that a fear of yours? And do you see that being an issue? Like, just recreating the things that have led to so much sort of inequality and sort of
I understand where you go with this. Yeah. So you're not going to have an even distribution of capital in any financial system.
No, I'm not.
It's just
I'm
the way
not
it is.
arguing that, yeah, we should or anything.
Yeah, no. But what I'm saying is, I agree with you. I agree with your analysis is that you don't have equal distribution. Your system is made up of millions of different actors who, some are more productive than others, some are luckier than others, some inherit more than others. We're all different players within the system, and yes, you will get concentrations of wealth. That's something that we just have to accept. What I care about is the system itself fair? Whether, because fairness of, like when we discuss whether it's fair that some people are richer than others, that's really a subjective idea. Is it fair that you have billionaires when there's people who can't even eat? That's a subjective idea, and it's a very difficult idea to debate certain people on, because they come from a very left idea that we should tax and redistribute income. And I'm not anti-tax, but historically, those who've gone too far on the socialist left side of, well, let's not even say left, but on the socialist redistribution of income side of things, historically hasn't really worked out. Didn't really work out for the USSR. Isn't really working out for Cuba, despite what people say. You need some form of like competition and incentives within the market. Now, we will never have equal distribution unless we have communism. But what I care about is the system and the rules within the system fair? So the rules within the current system isn't fair because a small group of people, whether it's a central bank or the government, get to make the decisions which affect the money supply, which ultimately affects the people. So, our inflation is relatively low here, but the decisions of Erdogan, currently the dictator of Turkey, have led to 20% inflation. Now, I saw a tweet where somebody was like, "Oh, it's great. I went to Turkey. Everything's brilliant. Everything's cheap." And somebody replied, I tweeted it out today and said, "Not for us living here. Things are getting very, very expensive because of the inflation." Now, that's happening because of people's hard work and the money they've created, the wealth they've managed to create is being wiped out because of poor decision-making by a few people running that country and ultimately a dictator. And we've seen it, it's pretty bad there. We've seen it in, I think it's in Argentina now. So it's like 40%, above 40% inflation. And they've been through multiple inflation. We've had hyperinflation in Venezuela where people have literally had their money wiped out. Even now in Lebanon, people have had their wealth wiped out. Okay, that's because the system is unfair. The thing about the Bitcoin system is fair, but you just won't have equal distribution. And that's just a natural part of the system. Your only alternative to that is have central confiscation and redistribution, and that itself is an unfair system.
Do you think that there's a chance, even a small chance, that governments just get on board with say Bitcoin and that sort of and just cryptocurrency more generally? Do you see them fighting it all the way, or because I don't know, I keep seeing these joke things about someone who's like, someone just tried to sell me some shit coin. It's like a $4.3 trillion supply, and they're constantly printing more money of it, and it's like all held by a tiny amount of people, and be like, no wait, that's the US dollar. Like is Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and the idea that like a financial system could exist without a central bank, essentially, is that too radical for our political system to deal with as it currently stands, at least anyway?
Yeah, there's no straight answer for that, because every government's different. I mean, it was too radical for China, and they've essentially banned it, and they banned Bitcoin mining, which is probably going to prove to be one of the most poor decisions by any government in the history of governments. It's also banned in Bolivia. I think it might be banned in Pakistan. So those countries have made the decision that they're not going to allow it. Now we have countries like ours in Europe, which haven't banned it, but are making it a little bit difficult and making it challenging for you to maybe connect your bank to exchange and buy Bitcoin. Then you've got the US, which is a little bit more pro Bitcoin. I'll come back to them in a second. Then you've got El Salvador, which is totally pro Bitcoin, which has made it legal tender. Now, the thing is, there's a really good opportunity for small countries like El Salvador, like Estonia, like Malta, and that they could be crypto friendly or Bitcoin friendly and create the environment for entrepreneurs to feel like they are able to build a business in their country in this industry, but also feel like they're not going to be attacked for owning this cryptocurrency, which gives you a regulatory arbitrage where you can say, okay, if the UK is going to tax me behind this and it's going to make it difficult for me to use it, I'll go and live in another country where I've got zero capital gains and I am welcomed as a Bitcoiner. So that regulatory arbitrage exists. I think the way the game theory plays out is, in the end, everyone has to accept what Bitcoin is. I mean, right now, Costa Rica wants to implement a 13% VAT on cryptocurrency purchases. That's like going on holiday and going to the Bureau d'Exchange and saying, okay, I'm going to the US, I want to buy, I want $1,000, and they charge you $130 on top to have that. They're actually, it doesn't make sense to charge VAT on currencies. And yet, just around the corner, you get El Salvador, which has 0% tax on Bitcoin. So why would a Bitcoiner go to Costa Rica? They're not going to. They're going to go to El Salvador. I think the US is the most interesting one at the moment. A big lens on the Fed at the moment because of the high inflation rate. So a big lens on the policies that are coming out of the government in terms of continuing to buy up securities, because these high inflation rates really affect people. And what you're seeing now is a new wave of politician who's coming through, who's being, what we say, orange pilled. They're being taught about Bitcoin, what it is and what it means. And in the end, the role of a politician, despite most of them being absolute dickheads, is to support the electorate. You support us. Okay, if the federal government is continuing to debase my currency, they are not supporting us. So why should I vote for you? So Bitcoin has become a hack for politicians. They can come and say, no, hold on. We don't like what the federal government's doing here. We like sound money. We're going to support Bitcoin here. Texas is prime. Texas is welcome to Bitcoiners. Whether it's Governor Abbott, who I recently met, or Ted Cruz, they've realized that actually the federal government is screwing up the money system, and that Bitcoin is a lifeboat to people. It's the same. You've got the same in Florida. You've got Mayor Francis. You've got in Miami. You've got Wyoming with Senator Lummis. Up in Ohio, you've got Congressman Warren Davidson. Then you've got a new breed of people, new people challenging for seats in Congress, and who are starting to come to the idea of Bitcoin. The reason that works in the US is because they have the state system. In that they want, like, the states are in competition with each other. San Francisco right now is an absolute basket case. You've got you've got retailers closing down because they put in place a law where they can't arrest anyone who steals under $1,000 of goods. So people are just walking into stores, picking up a load of clothes and walking out. Walgreens closing. I think Walmart's haven't closed. But it's not even just that.
Anything? I don't understand how that works. Like, have you been to San Francisco since they've had that in place?
Yeah. Like, no, but I've been there for the last 10 years and watched its demise.
But I don't understand how you can't prosecute. So I can just walk into any store and take $749 of stuff, and they can't prosecute me.
Yeah. It's just liberal politics gone mad, where people think they're being kind, but they don't understand the consequences of their decisions. So add to the fact that people are shitting on the streets, add to the fact that people are getting attacked by people who are high on drugs. There is the policies of certainly that city, but that state have gone so extreme that making what were successful cities unlivable. So somebody living there thinking, I've got a high property tax, I've got high state tax, people are shitting on the floor in my house, I've got druggies attacking people, I've got stores closing down because people are stealing goods from them. This sounds a bit shit. Oh, I can go to Texas where I've got no state tax and I've got a police force which is enforcing which is arresting people who are committing crimes. I'll go and live there. We don't have that in the UK, which is what sucks. We kind of had it through Europe, but not really, because we didn't realize it was competition. But we don't really have that in the UK. Whether I live in Bedford or whether I live in Manchester, I've still got the same rules. So this is a great advantage to the US, which is one of the reasons I don't see the US banning Bitcoin. I actually see that it's very unlikely. So listen, look, I think the debate of whether Bitcoin is here to stay or whether it's going to be banned, we're beyond that now. It's part of the financial system. You can buy Bitcoin futures now. Tesla got it on their balance sheet. There are tens of thousands, or maybe hundreds of thousands employed in that industry. And you know what? A lot of Bitcoin is held by Americans. That would be destroying a lot of wealth if you try to destroy Bitcoin.
Yeah, and there's definitely a sort of class of Bitcoin. Maxis or whatever, just sort of building up, that have become incredibly wealthy. Like if you look at people like Jake Paul or the Winklevoss twins, there's a whole group of people sort of starting to become very wealthy in this community to the point where they have enough influence. So one of the ideas I'm interested in, I've been listening to a lot of Alex Gladstone's work, essentially trying to figure out how Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, blockchain technology helps us reimagine how our system functions, basically. So I've also been listening to there's a recent Joe Rogan episode with Tristan Harris and I'll butcher his name, Daniel something. He's an evolutionary biologist and systems thinker, and they're essentially talking about how we design. How we utilize the benefits of technology in order to strengthen our democracy rather than to, destroy it in a way that technology is arguably doing at the minute in terms of like polarization and, other social issues that it's causing. So what way do you see Bitcoin helping us to change this system, or just the broader technology and community? Or has it already changed it and we don't realize the implications of what has already happened?
I don't think it's changed it yet. The politicians are meant to serve the people. Okay. That's their fundamental role, to serve the electorate. They tell us their policies. If we vote for them, they're meant to serve us. When they no longer serve us, it's tyranny. And we are seeing democracies doing things that feel tyrannical. I am vaccinated. I support the idea of vaccines. I'm quite a lone voice in the Bitcoin world with that, but I think there are a lot of people who should be vaccinated. And I don't think vaccines are a panacea for solving the COVID crisis, but I do think there are certain people that should, and it definitely has reduced the severity of the condition in a number of people. That said, I do not support mandates. I do not support the idea that Austria will lock down and separate half of a percentage of the society and say, you're the dirty ones, you're the unclean ones, you're the unvaccinated. You need to, we need to lock you away. Do not support that. That is tyrannical. So what we need are checks and balances in place that hold government to account. The US, in some ways, has it with their Second Amendment. They have the right to bear arms. They have that ability to form a militia if they really want to. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but we need checks and balances. And one of those checks and balances is the checks and balance over money. When you have control on the money, you have power. And I personally believe we need a separation of money and state. We want to take control of the money away from the state, because giving them the ability to print money, it means they can do what they want without consequence. During the lockdowns, a lot of companies closed. A lot of people lost their businesses, whether it's cafes or hairdressers, whatever. I spoke to a lot of people who they just lost their businesses because of it. Do you think a single government employee lost their job? No, because when they make the decisions, there are no consequences. Like if you choose not to work, you choose not to earn money and you have to face those consequences. Again, they don't face that in government. So I think one of the big changes that Bitcoin can bring, and I'm not one of these anarcho-capitalists who believes that society can't operate without any kind of like central decision making on certain things, border protection, nuclear policy and nuclear waste disposal, things like that. I'm not one of those people, but I support the idea that if we have a form of money which can hold government to account, which is harder for them for tax, that they can't print, it means the government will have to run a budget like you or I do. Like I can't go out and spend any money I want because I have to pay my mortgage and pay the bills and make sure my kids are fed and clothed. The government itself needs a budget. And if it can't stick to its budget, then it has to make the decisions. So I like the idea that Bitcoin will make government smaller, make it more responsible. I'm not one of those people who thinks it will get rid of it, but I think we're away from that. I think that's something that that's years, decades away.
Okay, so one of the things I would say to that is that over the last year or so, I've been having a lot of conversations with people about like what is money. How monetary policy works, how tax works, and just I've been trying to understand the financial system that Bitcoin is attempting to replace, essentially. And I've come to the conclusion that this is my thoughts at least anyway, that it's not a bad thing for a government to have control of their currency. So, for example, we talked very briefly about Brexit there before we started. So I think that it's a good thing that we still have the pound because Britain has control of its currency. And one of the things that I see as a weakness, however big a weakness you can debate that, but of Europe is that each individual country no longer has control of their currency. And I see that as being a very powerful tool of the state and one that can be wielded in a really, really good way, essentially. Like we've seen what can happen when governments decide to take the power of the state and spend it on like infrastructure and, just localized spending projects. And instead of, obviously there's this trope that governments just, waste the money and blow up the deficit. But like, I don't know, maybe I'm optimistic, but I believe that there's another side to that where if we had the right people in the position and the institutions hadn't become horrendously corrupted, that it could do some good. But if you take that away, then the state no longer has that power. Like, are you just an advocate for that the government shouldn't have that much power? Because I could see that case, or like, do you see that as a bad thing if that was removed? Essentially, is my question.
Yeah, I used to agree with you. I did used to think that one of the benefits that the UK had over Europe is as control of its money. But with that, it kind of, since I've discovered Bitcoin and understood, what the money printer means and what inflation is, I've actually started to realize whilst that's a strength of the state, it's a weakness of the electorate. Because I think one thing the government is very good at doing is taxing people. One thing it's very bad at doing is spending. I mean, just look at the HS2 project. When they talk about the costs of that, I'm like, what the fuck? How is that costing that much money? Yeah, and you look at all the problem I have really is the majority of people employed by the state are morons who don't face severe consequences for poor decision making. Yeah, I'm not saying everyone. There's probably some great people. There's probably some great civil servants out there, but a lot of them are morons, right? They can't, like, they don't face the competition of the private marketplace. Okay, now I create a podcast. If I do a shit job, people stop listening and go and listen to a different podcast, right? If I have a hairdresser's and I'm shit at cutting hair, people will go to a different hairdresser. If I raise my prices too much, the market figures itself out. The market figures out for each service what is the best price to pay for that. That doesn't exist within the state. Like, look, I'm a huge supporter of the NHS. I think it's brilliant what we have with the NHS, but it's completely flawed because it has essentially an unlimited money to go for. Essentially, when I say essentially, what I mean is that it doesn't face bankruptcy. It just faces when it spends too much money on a service which is stretched. But a privatized health service would have to make different decisions. So, for example, I can get an appointment with the doctor whenever I want, okay? Whenever I want. I mean, it might take 3 weeks. Now, there's a private doctor's near me now. You can get an appointment within the next 2 days if you're willing to pay £50, okay? As a private service, they figured out a way to monetize flaws in the NHS. So by saying we have a strength of the pound, what we're saying is that we support the idea that the government is spending money. It's better at spending money than the free market. It's better at solving problems than the free market. And usually it isn't. I mean, how many stories do we hear about wasted government spending or projects going to friends of people within Parliament? So, yeah, I used to think that. Now I don't. Now I just think what we need is a more free market for money and a more free market for the development of what are the best ideas.
I mean, maybe I'll end up there eventually. Like, I just, you go from naivety to skepticism to wisdom. So maybe I'm not quite at wisdom yet.
Do you own Bitcoin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
okay,
mean,
good.
My plan is stack sats. I mean, my income is very small at the minute due to the small nature of this podcast, and I'm spending a lot of time writing my book about GameStop. But every little bit that I can, it's like mostly either GameStop or Bitcoin. That's what I'm buying.
Still buy GameStop?
Oh, yeah, man. This is not over. I mean, like, this is what I mean. I don't know how familiar you are with it. It's so far from over, I can't even begin to explain. And I have never witnessed, this is why I started writing the book about it, because I was in it from January and watched the community, like, not only not get bored, but get, like, hyper focused on exposing the level of corruption that this saga has exposed in a way. And they're still pushing. They still think it's going to go to the moon. And I think they might be right. Because, GameStop are planning some very cool things. So this sort of links to two questions that people had sort of put in the chat here. So
cool.
At the minute, the idea is that GameStop are going to trigger this going to the moon by proving that there are way more shares in circulation that should exist by issuing an NFT dividend based on the Ethereum blockchain. So a lot of people who are in the GameStop community are both very bullish on Ethereum because it, like, quote unquote, does everything. And they're also very interested in the idea of NFTs, especially fractionalized ones, or using NFTs as a dividend financially. Have you come across, like, A, that idea before, and B, do you think Ethereum has the flexibility that people suggest it does?
So I've not really taken an interest too much in NFTs because I don't really take an interest in protocols outside of Bitcoin, because I'm fully sold on the mission of what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is, we're trying to do one thing. We're trying to create better money, and with better money, we hope we create a better world. Just to the malincentives of fiat currency, which aren't pegged to anything, and the ability to just print money. I mean, look, Nixon took the US off the gold standard to pay for the Vietnam War, to go and drop bombs and napalm over villages in Vietnam, and an absolute clusterfuck that was. The Gulf War is intrinsically linked to the petrodollar. The petrodollar was used by Saudi the relationship between you should go and listen to my interview with Nick Carter and Gladstein regarding the petrodollar, but the petrodollar is intrinsically linked to the Gulf War, and we've seen what's happened with Saudi also essentially committing atrocities. What a moron.
Yemen.
In Yemen. and they have the shield of the US because they took the petrodollar to price oil, and in return they supplied them with arms. So like so much war and destruction is linked to the malincentives of fiat currencies, which aren't really pegged to anything. So I'm in this for one thing, which is a world which has a better form of money. And that's all I want to work on. Ethereum isn't here to create better money. It just isn't. And it isn't a better form of money. It is fundamentally unsound money with a flexible, loose monetary policy. So I've just really taken little interest in Ethereum rather than just laughing at it. And therefore, I've taken little interest in NFTs. Now, I've heard one idea of NFTs that I find mildly interesting, the idea that you could maybe buy a concert ticket or a cinema ticket, an NFT, and you can scan that and get into a venue, because really whether the protocol has long-term viability is really irrelevant. As long as I can use it on Saturday to get in my cinema, then it's fine. But no, I'm not interested in NFTs. I think it's a bubble, and I'm not really interested in other protocols. So sorry. Why didn't I forget Yemen's name there?
Don't apologize to me.
I'm old age. I'm so bad with names.
I mean, isn't it a thing? Some people are good with names, and some people are better with numbers. Like some people are really amazing at remembering dates or like statutes. Or I found that when I was studying and I did law, there were certain people who could just like rhyme off statutes, be like, oh yeah, that's the 1968 Criminal Act, Section 4, subsection B, point C. And you'd be like, what? Hang on, like, I can't even remember what it says, let alone where it's from. Yeah. So what do you think of the whole Metaverse idea that Zuckerberg and many people are trying to create? Like, is this where the world is going? And do you see some form of Lightning Network as being the like currency of exchange in there, or do you think it would be created by whoever the creators of said Metaverse or whatever digital world you're entering? Do you think it's going to be like their created currency, or do you think we're going to have like internet-wide, digital space-wide currencies?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd be interested to see what happens with the metaverse. I put out a tweet once. I think I said, "What about the multi-metaverse?" Because we talk about the multiverse as a potential theory, in astrophysics. But it was really a joke. And then we had the announcement last week that the Winklevoss has taken 400 million investment into Gemini to build their own version of the metaverse, but their idea is to build a decentralized metaverse. I think the idea of a centralized metaverse operated by Facebook or Meta, what they're called now, controlled by Mark Zuckerberg, sounds like my idea of hell. It's like they're basically creating what the Matrix was, I just the history of Facebook's history isn't particularly pretty, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you can say that.
They haven't really cared for privacy. They haven't really. They don't really have too much integrity. Now, I actually like the race between Twitter and Facebook, where for years Facebook seemed to be ahead, but like Twitter's now catching them up. And the Jack Dorsey was essentially the tortoise, and Facebook was the hare. And he's building a much more structurally robust social media platform. Now, look, don't get me wrong, Twitter isn't without its flaws, and there are some serious questions over deplatforming and censorship. I understand that, but that said, it's no Facebook. The idea of plugging myself into a metaverse operated by Facebook sounds like my idea of hell. Maybe it's just my age, but I'm really wanting to spend more of my time outside and in nature and enjoying the real world. But I could see how my kids were like, "Oh, Dad, no, I can go in there and I could get to be this person, living this like amazing Ready Player One style life where I can be a racing car driver. I can be this and that." And that's cool, whatever. I'm much more into the idea of a decentralized metaverse, which is what the Winklevoss want to build. I think that's a much better idea. A decentralized metaverse that isn't controlled by any individual is certainly something we should strive for, and I would support them in everything they do. And then the idea will be, look, if it's the centralized Facebook metaverse versus the decentralized metaverse, my expectation is that the free market in the decentralized metaverse will figure out its currency, whereas the centralized metaverse will use whatever Mark Zuckerberg chooses, which is probably some shitcoin that they create. If it's the decentralized metaverse, then it'll be a plethora. It could be Bitcoin, it could be Bitcoin across the Lightning Network, and it could be any number of shitcoins. And the decentralized nature of that market will decide which currencies people wish to accept and use.
I really like that idea you've just brought up, actually, of the the multi-metaverse. Like, what if these are all the different dimensions? What if this is like, what if we're literally summoning what if we're the ones creating all the different dimensions in the future by creating different metaverses that evolve and become their own thing? Like, what if this is literally it?
Consequences of the metaverse. What if it's so cool inside the metaverse that you like real life is depressing? What if your life's so fucking miserable? Like, you go to work and you've got a shit job, and then you get home and you just can't wait to plug yourself in because you suddenly get to transport yourself into a world where you're some superhero or some, whatever it is. Like, you get to be somebody else. You get to rebrand yourself inside the metaverse. But what are the consequences of that? Like addiction in there. If you die in the metaverse, what happens? Like, I feel like there's a lot of discussions that need to be had about the consequences of the metaverse. I mean, my kids already spend too much time on TikTok. I mean, how much time would they spend inside the metaverse? What's that going to do for their mental health? I don't think we're questioning this enough.
Yeah, I was listening to a very interesting thing yesterday, actually, about it was an interview with Jordan Peterson, actually, on from a Dutch company, VPRO, or VPRO, who actually did the documentary I did about GameStop that's coming out next year. So they were basically asking him about technology and what it does to kids, and he believes that there's going to be serious issues coming from children's lack of fantasy sort of playing. In that, like, that he thinks that there's something really inherently needed about that I don't know, imagining, just that you need like the 3, 4, 5 years in your childhood where you're the one inventing all these like worlds that you're playing in, and that the screens are the things that they're going to be causing, and they probably are. Like, he thinks that that's the source of a lot of the mental health problems and kids these days, is that they're not getting that play. So maybe the metaverse would actually do that. Maybe we're just in like a low resolution version of what could happen. So that at the minute, technology is like not able to accurately like recreate that. But then in 20 years, when it's so realistic, it might be able to like offer that sort of psychological development that we're not able to. But I get the feeling that there's probably something that we're never going to get from technology that we get from the real world.
What if in the metaverse you can create a job or find a job, something you're really good at in the metaverse, which means you don't need a job in the real world? So you go into the metaverse as your job to earn money because you're successful. Maybe you sell real estate there. Maybe you're competing some kind of racing card thing and you're the best. What if you're so good that your entire income is derived from what you do inside the metaverse? And then you only come out of the metaverse to sleep. But what about if somebody within the metaverse says, hey, while you're sleeping, we can use your energy that you're creating, your heat energy. We can use that. So whilst you're sleeping, you can sell the energy created while you're sleeping to us in the metaverse. You are suddenly in the matrix.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, my best friend said to me the other day, he was like, yeah, this is the Matrix. Like, that's what Mark Zuckerberg is making. And I can't remember who it was that tweeted it. It might have been Tim Dillon. He was like, well, there's nothing more reassuring about, the quality of life when one of the richest people in the world is so unfulfilled with the real world that he's going to go create a whole digital one for himself to exist in.
To be honest, I think it's the porn companies, like every other technology innovation, are going to lead the way with the metaverse. Everyone's going to be able to go in there and have sex with whoever they want, however they want.
Has no one seen the Futurama episode? Do you know the one I mean? Where they're like, where Fry, he gets a robot that looks like someone, I can't remember who it is, some TV star from like the 90s, and he just only wants to like hang out and have sex with the robot. And then, Dr. Farnsworth is like, didn't you see the film? And it's like some film they show all kids in like the year 3000. It's like, don't have sex with robots, don't get into these relationships, because otherwise we'll never have children and the human race will die. It's a joke, but it's real. Like, if we all go in there, that's us. We're done. Like, I guess we gotta.
Well, I think we're living at the best and worst of times. The best times in that we got to live through this new like era of technological innovation where we went from an old phone where we had to dial to phone our friends to like suddenly having a super computer in our pocket that's made our lives immensely better. But we're also on the verge of so much technological innovation that we can actually have the ability to completely destroy ourselves. So we got the perfect time, I think, just in that slot. I think my time will be done just before we destroy ourselves.
We are gods, but for the wisdom, I think is the quote. But do you think that's actually the case? Are we at this end, or because a lot of people think we're at the start? Like, and I like to believe that, at least anyway. It seems that there's a good chance that we're in a position where, like, we can have our cake and eat it too. Like, technology is getting like just exponentially more brilliant. And as long as we don't allow greed and power-hungry people to completely destroy the system, we have a ridiculously positive future, like, potentially in front of us. Like, we have to take the right steps, but like all the potential is there for things to be absolutely incredible. Like, I think they expect the UN expects absolute poverty to be gone by the year 2030. Like, what? That's just mind-bogglingly amazing. Like, that means that no one will be starving, theoretically, but for like horrendous governance in whatever country they're in. Like, imagine what
I think we destroy ourselves.
You think we destroy ourselves?
Yeah, I think we destroy ourselves because it only takes one psychopath with the wrong technology to destroy us. Like CRISPR, the ability for like some psychopath to be able to create, all the worst combinations of all diseases, like take Ebola and make it as viral and contagious as COVID. Something like that. Or I don't know. I feel like we destroy ourselves somehow. I should be more positive, but I feel like we destroy ourselves.
Why are you stacking sats if the world's going to end? No.
I think it ends. I think it ends after me. I think I've got like a decade or two before it ends, but okay. I think we destroy ourselves.
Well, I mean, we can end with this, but I tend to be quite positive about things. Like we've had the capability to destroy ourselves for 75 years, and we haven't, not yet, thankfully.
Yeah, true. Yeah, well, we'll see. Anyway, keep stacking stats in the process.
Yes. So, do you want to point your people towards anything of yours that you've done of late? Any particular podcasts? I know you mentioned that one with Nick Carter about the petrodollar. Was there anything else?
Oh, just like if you're going to learn about it, go to whatbitcoindid.com. I've interviewed so many different people. There's so many good interviews there. They will teach you if you want to learn about mining or if you want to learn about the history of money, whatever aspect of Bitcoin you want to learn about. I've probably covered it, but yeah. No, I appreciate you having me on. And like, if people want to check it out, please do go and whatbitcoindid.com.
Yeah. Well, everyone, thank you very much for tuning in. And we'll see you next time. In the month of November, I'm going to be running a giveaway contest for the subscribers of this podcast. You can win some advanced copies of my book, signed, of course, a GameStop voucher worth $50, or a 1-year subscription to Riverside.fm Pro worth a whopping $288. All you have to do is follow the steps in the description below. You can follow me on Twitter, sign up to my mailing list, or share the contest with friends. All you have to do is follow the steps in the description below. You can follow me on Twitter, sign up to my mailing list, or share the contest with friends. In the month of November, I'm going to be running a giveaway contest for the subscribers of this podcast. You can win some advanced copies of my book, signed, of course, a GameStop voucher worth $50, or a 1-year subscription to Riverside.fm Pro worth a whopping $288. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment for us in the comments below. Let me know what you thought and if you'd like to see more of this from the show. Thank you, and we'll see you again next time.